Hey guys, and welcome to the Create a Serverless App video tutorial series. I am really excited about this series because we are going to be building an entire serverless application together, step by step, on the Amazon Web Services platform. We'll be using DynamoDB for our data store, AWS Lambda for our backend code, and API Gateway for our REST API. Then we'll wire everything up in our UI and verify that everything is working from front to back. So if that sounds interesting, please continue to watch this video and code along with me. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, let's get started. All right, guys, so before we get started, I just want to give you a brief overview of what it is we're going to be building. Let's take a look at the UI first. So this is a simple starter UI that I'm providing for this tutorial to give us something to work with, and this is what will ultimately integrate with our backend serverless architecture. Now, at first I thought about coding the UI line by line as part of this tutorial, but ultimately I decided that I really wanted to keep the focus on serverless and not spend a lot of time making you watch me write form elements, CSS, buttons, and stuff like that. So the starter app is a very simple single-page React.js application. Let's take a peek at the code. It's very clean and minimal, and all of the integration points are clearly marked with comments. And of course, we'll go over them line by line when it comes time to integrate with our serverless backend. So don't worry too much, even if you don't know React. It'll all make sense once we walk through this together. All right. Now, as you can see, the products initially are held in React state, which is just client-side temporary storage, just held in this array here. All right. And then our code basically iterates over that array and outputs a product for each item in the array here. And again, don't worry too much about the details here until we get into it later on in the lecture. But ultimately, we'll want the products to persist in a database. So that's where our serverless backend will come in. We'll have our products stored in our DynamoDB database. Our Lambda functions will take care of all of the CRUD operations, that is, create, read, update, and delete. And our API gateway will be the REST API, which will serve as an interface between the UI and our serverless backend. All right, back to the UI. So Hexal Energy is just a fictitious company that I made up for the purpose of this exercise. All right, now they sell green energy products, things like solar panels, windmills, insulation, water pumps, etc. All right, so we have a simple products page here. And this page will just list all of the products that the company offers. Okay, you can see there are no products available right now. Then we have an admin page. So this is a product admin page where an employee of the company could potentially come in and add a product and delete products. Now again, this is all held in client-side memory for now, so nothing's going to persist if I say navigate away or refresh the page. And this is where our serverless backend will come into play. All right, guys, so here are the main tasks that we'll be covering in this series in order to complete our serverless app. Number 1, download and install the UI. Number 2, create our DynamoDB products table. Number 3, create our Lambda basic execution role, which will allow Lambda to interact with DynamoDB. Number 4, create our Lambda functions for create, read, update, and delete. Number 5, create our REST API. Number 6, integrate our REST API with our UI. And finally, number 7, verify that the app is working. And with that, let's get started. All right, so our first step is going to be to download and install our application starter UI. And I just want to make sure that everyone's able to get it installed okay and that you're able to see the website in your browser before we move on to start building our serverless backend. Now there will be a link to the repository at GitHub where the starter UI is located in the description of this video. So just take a second to go find that, copy that to your clipboard, and then navigate to the location on your computer where you want to have this installed. Now I'm just going to install it on my desktop for now for demonstration purposes since I already have it installed in my usual C drive projects folder location. All right, so go ahead and open your command line interface. I'm just going to use git bash here. And let's make the text size a little bit bigger so you guys can see better. There we go. All right, so first of all, I need to cd into desktop. So just go ahead and switch directories to wherever you want to have this installed. All right. Now next I'm going to go ahead and type in git clone and then paste in the URL to the repository that we copied in the last step. and then go ahead and hit enter. That's going to download the site files onto your machine. Now once that's done, go ahead and cd into that newly created directory, which is Hexal-Serverless-Starter. All right, so make sure you're in that new directory. And then next, go ahead and type in npm I and hit enter. Now this is going to go ahead and install all of our dependencies that are listed in our package.json file. So this may take a minute or two. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video for now and come back once it's completed. All right, so it looks like the install is complete. You should basically see some log output here in the console, and then at the bottom you'll see added so many packages in so many seconds, indicating that it's complete. So once that's done, you should have a new line here to work with, and go ahead and go ahead and type in npm start. Typing problem, sorry about that. Enter. And this will go ahead and spin up a development server, after which we should be able to access our site in the browser. So just give that a second, and it'll open up the browser for you, I think in most cases. If not, just open up a new browser tab and type in localhost port 3000, and you should be able to load the website. So just give that a second, and it should pop up momentarily here. And there we go. So hopefully you're able to see the home page here, and just click around a bit. Now, the two main pages we'll be working with are going to be the products page and the admin page. So just make sure that you're able to go there. And you can try to add a product here. Just make sure that works okay. You should be able to delete it. Now, note that the login and sign up pages, these aren't working right now. I just have the buttons here, and maybe in a future video we'll actually integrate authentication with AWS Cognito. But for now, those don't work. They're just the buttons here. So if you're able to see the home page and those few pages here, then that's great. Everything's working, and we can go ahead and shelve this while we turn our attention to building our serverless backend. All right, guys. So if you do run into any problems with the install, or you're not able to see the site, just let me know in the comments. Let me know if you're seeing any particular errors or anything like that, and I'll do my best to help you out and get you going. All right? And otherwise, I think we're ready to move on to the next step, which is going to be to set up our DynamoDB products table. All right, guys, so the first step is to head on over to aws.amazon.com and go ahead and log into the AWS Management Console for your account. Okay? Now, I'll first do a quick region check. I want to make sure that I'm in the right region. That is the region closest to where I'm located. So for me, that's US West 2. So just go ahead and select your region if it's not already selected. And let's head on over to DynamoDB. So if you don't already have it in your recently visited, just go ahead and type it in. And if you spell it right, it should pop right up. There we go. All right, so once you're here, just go ahead and click on Create Table. So we're going to give our table a name. I'm just going to call this the products table. So products. For primary key, I'm going to enter in ID. Okay, so each product is going to have a unique identifier, which will be called ID, which will be a string. All right. So I can leave all the other settings as is, as their defaults, and go ahead and click on Create. All right, now this will take a minute or two to get generated, so I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. All right, and our table has been created. There it is, products. So the last thing I want to do here before we head on over to IAM is to, on the Overview tab, go ahead and scroll to the bottom and grab the Amazon resource name and go ahead and copy that to your clipboard. Okay, we'll use this on the next step where we create our Lambda execution role. All right, so once you've copied that, let's go ahead and head on over to IAM. All right, now we want to create a new role, a Lambda execution role. So go ahead and click on Roles from the left-hand menu. Okay, go ahead and click on Create Role. Make sure it's AWS Service and go ahead and click on Lambda. Go ahead and click on Next Permissions. All right, so we want to search for a policy called AWS Lambda Basic Execution Role. So if you type in the first few characters, that should pop up. Okay. And what this basic level of permissions is just going to do is allow us to write logs to CloudWatch. All right, that's not really important for this exercise, but this is a starting point. So go ahead and click on Next. Okay, We don't need to do anything here with tags, so just leave that blank and click on Next Review. All right, so let's give our role a name. I'm going to say Hexal Lambda Basic Execution. Okay. All right, once you've got that name, go ahead and click on Create Role. All right, guys, so once you've added your new role, you should see it show up in your list of IAM roles. All right, so the next thing we want to do is to give our new role some more fine-grained permissions for interacting with DynamoDB. So go ahead and click on your newly created role, all right, and select Add Inline Policy over to the right. Okay, so on the next screen, first we want to choose the service that we're allowing or disallowing permissions for. So we're looking for DynamoDB. Okay, go ahead and select that. Now on the next step, Actions, here's where we specify exactly what we want to allow our Lambda to be able to do. So I'm going to add these actions one by one rather than just give it blanket permissions to do everything. So let's go ahead and click on Add Actions. All right, now we've got 4 of them that we want to add. So the first one is Get Item. So just type that into the search box and click Add. Okay, so again, click on Add Actions. The next one is going to be Put Item. Okay, next one is going to be Update Item. And finally, can you guess what the last one's going to be? You got it, Delete Item. All right, so go ahead and add that one. All right, so once you've got those 4 added, go ahead and scroll down to the Resources section. All right, and if you see the link that says Add ARN, go ahead and click that. Here's where we want to paste the ARN that we copied in the last step. All right, so go ahead and paste that into the form field here. And the rest of the fields should auto-populate based on what you entered. Go ahead and click on Add. Okay. Now we don't need to do anything with the last section here, so go ahead and click on Review Policy. Let's give this a name, so I'm going to say Hexal DynamoDB Policy. Okay, that looks good to me, and let's go ahead and click on Create Policy. There we go, so that looks good. Here is our role, here is our basic execution policy, and here's our Hexal DynamoDB policy. And we can go in and just quickly verify that it's got everything that we're expecting. So click on JSON, and there we go, Get, Delete, Put, Update. That looks good to me. All right, so we are done with this. We are ready to start coding our Lambda functions. So let's head on over to Lambda. All right, so from the top menu, let's find Lambda and navigate over there. Okay. All right, so once you're at the AWS Lambda landing page, let's go ahead and click Create Function. Now we're going to be creating 4 new functions basically. So we'll code the first function through line by line, and then from there we'll just copy that one across to the other 3 and make a few slight modifications. So the last 3 won't take as long as the first one. So I think the first one we want to tackle is going to be the put function in order to put a new product into the database. All right, so let's give it a name. I'm going to say Hexal put. All right, just keep it simple. Let's leave node 8 selected as the runtime. For role, just leave it as choose an existing role. And then in the existing role dropdown, we want to select the execution role that we previously created. So if you remember, it's Hexal Lambda Basic Execution. Once you've got that selected, let's go ahead and click Create Function. All right, now our Lambda function has been created, and so we're ready to input the code. So you can see there's some starter boilerplate code here. I think what we're going to do is jump over to our text editor, to our IDE. We're going to code our Lambda there, and then we're just going to copy and paste it over into the editor here. All right, it's just a little bit easier to work with from the IDE, I find. So I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. I'm going to go ahead and I've created a new folder, Hexal Serverless Lambda. So you can follow that pattern if you want, and I'm just going to create a new file under this folder. And I'm going to call it the same as I named my Lambda, so Hexal put, all right, .js. All right, so let's make sure you guys are able to, I think that's good enough like that. All right, so first line we're going to do use strict All right, just follow good practices for JavaScript. Oops, spelled that wrong. All right, so the second line, what we want to do is pull in the main AWS library. So I'm going to do a require aws.sdk. Okay. Now, I probably should have mentioned earlier, but this is going to be a NodeJS Lambda, so that's why we're coding this in JavaScript. Slight detail that I left out there. So this is a standard signature for a Lambda function. Exports.handler, and we're going to use async since we're using Node 8. Okay. And this takes two arguments, event and context. Okay, now we can use an arrow function and the body of our function there. All right, so all of our code is going to go inside this main handler function. Now the first thing I want to do is bring in the document client library, which is the main library that our Lambda will use to interface with DynamoDB. Okay? So I'll do a const document client equals new AWS. This is all underneath the AWS library. DynamoDB dot document client. All right, so here we're instantiating an instance of document client that we could use then in our Lambda to do things like document client dot put dot delete and so forth. I want to make sure my capitalization is correct there. Okay. So let's do our document client dot put first. All right, so since we're using async await, we're going to use a try catch. Okay. So I'll do my try and I'll go ahead and do my catch right away. So that will take an error object. And we'll go ahead and just code out the structure for this first and then fill in the details. All right, so under our try clause, I'm going to create a data object to hold our response. Okay, then I'm going to do an await document client dot put. Okay, so this is going to be to add a new product object to the database. This will take params, and then we're just going to wrap this in a promise function. And now this is a utility function that AWS has provided, and it can be used to, well, we can chain it to the end of pretty much any AWS library function in order to permissify it. That way we can use it with our async await. All right. All right, now we want to capture the response body after this function is executed. All right, so we're going to do response body. We need to actually create this first. We need to create a response variable. So let's go up, back step a little bit, and let's create our response object. Okay, and I'm just going to initialize this to an empty string for now, and then we'll actually populate it once we get a response back from our document client.put. So now our response will be a JSON object, but we need to stringify it to return it to the UI. Okay, so I'm going to do JSON.stringify, pass it data. All right. So that will hold our response in a string form, and then we're going to, the next variable we need to create is going to be for our status code. So let's do status code. We'll initialize it to 0 up here, and then we'll change it down here to 201, which is a common status code for object created. All right. All right, so that's our happy case. Now we want to handle any errors as well. So let's go down to our catch clause, and in this case, we'll set the response body to let's see, what do we want to do here? Let's do a string. Let's say unable to put product, okay, and then we'll just output the error message like that. All right, now in this case, we'll also set the status code to 403. Okay, so that will handle, if anything goes wrong, we'll get a 403 status code and we'll get our error message so we can inspect that in the logs. All right? All right, now the next thing we want to do is to create our params object so we have something to actually send into document_client.put. So let's go right below our response body and status code variables and go ahead and create our params object. So we'll set this to an empty object, and then we need to follow a specific syntax for DynamoDB that it requires. So the first thing we want to do, the first property we need to create here is going to be table name, which I believe we said was products. Okay. Now the next thing we want to do is to pass in an item property, or I should say add an item property to our params object. And this will contain the details in terms of what product we're actually adding to the table. So we need to set two properties, which is ID and a product name. So for now, we're just going to hard code these, okay? I'm going to say solar panels. So we're going to hard code this at first just to make sure that our Lambda is able to talk to DynamoDB okay. And then once we go back to create our API gateway, we'll actually get these from the request itself from API gateway. So we'll come back and modify our Lambda slightly to unhard code this and basically read it in from the request from API gateway. All right? And finally, the last thing we need to do here is to create our response object. So this is going to contain a status code. We'll just set that to the status code object that we created previously. We can specify any headers here. So let's say this will be an object. Let's just do a content type equals application JSON. There's that a dash, right? There we go. Okay, so below headers, finally we'll send back our response body. So just call that property body, and then we'll set that to response body. All right. Oh, and finally, of course, we need to return our response. All right, so I think that is looking pretty good. So let's go ahead and copy and paste all of this. I'm going to save it first, then I'm going to select all, copy. I'm going to go ahead and paste this into our Lambda. So let's switch back over to AWS. Just delete everything that's there right now and go ahead and go ahead and paste that in. All right, now we want to, let's see, it's giving us some indications here that we missed out some semicolons, so let's fix that. Missing semicolon. All right, now that looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Save. Now we can go ahead and test this Lambda out. So the first thing we need to do is to create a test event. Go ahead and click on Test there, and we can just name this Test. We don't really need to change any values here because we're hard coding our product that we're sending in, so we're not really going to read it from here. We could do that, but for now, let's just go ahead and click on Create, and that will allow us to go ahead and test our function. So once you're ready, go ahead and click on Test. That is going to run our Lambda function, and if we scroll back up to the top, we should see some log output here. Execution results succeeded, so we see our status code 201 indicating that our request was successful. So that looks good. What we can do now is open up DynamoDB in a new tab and verify that our new product is in the table. All right, so go ahead and select Tables from the left-hand menu and click on Products. On the right-hand side, go ahead and click on Items, and there we go. There's our solar panels. Our new product is in the table. So our Lambda is successful, and we're able to add products now. So that's a great start. I think what we'll do next is work on probably our delete function. All right. So what we can do is head back over to our IDE, and I'm just going to copy and paste this. I'm going to create a new file under our Hexal Serverless Lambda. Okay, new file. oops. I'm going to call this Hexal delete.js. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste this like that. All right, so now to go from put to delete, there's only a few things we need to change here. All right, the first thing is going to be in the params object. What we need to do is now we're going to be deleting by ID. So code is going to look for the ID and then delete that object. So we don't need product name anymore. And what we want to do is change item, the property name item, to key. Okay. So it'll delete by key, which is ID. All right, and we're passing in that ID. Again, we're hard coding it, and later we'll change our Lambda function to read it in from the request. All right, so now let's go down to our try catch, and we need to change a few things here. So we need to change put to delete. All right, let's change our status code to 204. All right, and we'll just change our error message a little bit. Unable to delete product. All right, that makes more sense. And let's see, anything else here? I think that is all we really need to change. Yep, that looks good. So let's go ahead and copy. Now there are a few places where I had to add, where I didn't add semicolon, so let me go ahead and do that here. Params, where else was it? At the end of here, at the end of my return, I need a semicolon. All right, so I'm going to save that. I'm going to copy everything, copy that to your clipboard. Let's head over back to Lambda, and we need to create a new Lambda function for delete. So Lambda, again, I'm going to click on create function. I'm going to name this Hexal delete. I'm going to leave all the other options as is. I'm going to select our execution role. All right. By the second or third one of these, we'll be just flying through these. All right. So create function. Now scroll down to your boilerplate code. Go ahead and delete that and paste in our delete function. Okay. Looks good. So we're going to save that. Again, we're going to create a test event. I'm just going to name it test and ignore the actual event code. Just click on create. And we've got the same ID as the product that we just added. So our intention here is to go ahead and delete that solar panels product. All right, so when you're ready, go ahead and click on test. And let's look at our logs. That's great. So we got a 204, so it looks like that should have worked. So again, let's flip back over to DynamoDB, and all we need to do is refresh this. And there we go. Solar panels are gone. So our delete function is working. That's great. So let's see, what do we want to do next? I think we want to do our get next. Okay, so we need a way to get all of our products and bring them down and display them on the web page. All right, guys, let's head back over to our IDE. And again, we're going to follow the same pattern here. We're just going to copy the previous function that we created and just modify it to create our next one. So I'm going to go ahead and copy all the code in our Hexal delete, and I'm going to create a new function or a new file. And let's call this one Hexal getItems.js. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and paste the code in here. So again, there are just a few things that we're going to need to modify here to make this work. All right, the first one is, again, our params. So in this case, we only need table name. Table name equals products. So we are going to use a method called scan from document client. And what scan does basically is it iterates over the entire table and it returns all of the values or all of the items in the table. Now, typically you can pass scan some, different kind of filter clauses or filter expressions. Say I want to return only the products created after a specific date or something like that. Then that's possible. But in this case, I just want to return all the items. So I can use scan without sending in any sort of filter expressions. All right, so let's go down to our try clause, and we just want to change delete to scan. And I'm going to change status code back to 200 for just a typical success response. And then I'm going to change our error message to unable to get products. All right, and that's it. So let's go ahead and save that. Let's copy our code. Select all, copy. And let's go back to, one more thing we want to change here. Since we're dealing with multiple items coming back, this is going to be data dot items. Good thing I caught that. All right. All right, quick look to make sure everything looks good. Params table name, scan, data.items. Now I think that looks good. So let's go ahead and again, copy, select all and copy. And let's go back to Lambda. And we're going to create a new function. You guys can probably do this with your eyes closed at this point. So Hexal, let's say get items. Okay, we're going to leave everything else as is. Choose our basic execution role. Click on create function. All right, and once that's done, scroll down a bit and let's again replace our boilerplate code here with the code that we just created. All right, save that. Click on test and let's create our dummy test event. Okay, create. And let's go ahead and run our Lambda. So click on test when you're ready. Okay, let's check our execution result logs. Oh, and we got a 403, meaning that our request failed. Now, can you guys guess what's going on here? You can probably get a clue if you look at the error message that we're outputting here. Or I'm sure some of you guys may have noticed this before I even ran the Lambda. Hexal get items is not authorized to perform DynamoDB scan on resource. So this is a permissions issue. And if you remember, when we created our Lambda execution role, we gave it, let's see, we gave it get, delete, put, and what was the last one? Update, but we did not give it permissions for the scan method. So what we need to do is go back to IAM and add that permissions. So let's, from the top menu, let's pop open IAM in a new tab, and we need to find our execution role. So click on roles from the left. Select Hexal Lambda Basic Execution. And what we need to do is drill into our policy here and find out a way to add the scan method. So if I think we can just edit the policy directly here. Yeah. And let's just edit or how are we going to do this here? Expand this. Okay, so under actions, expand that section. And under access level, let's expand read. And we just want to check the checkbox next to the scan method. All right, just like that. So then scroll down a little bit, click on review policy, and save changes. Great, so now our scan has been added. All right, so we can close out this tab and let's go back to Lambda and let's try that again. So go ahead and click on test again. Let's run this function. And there we go. That looks much better, 200. All right, so however, I'm not seeing anything in the body. That's because there's nothing in our table right now. So what we could do is we could go back to our put function again and put a couple of items in there. Yeah, let's do that real quick just to make sure so you guys can see how this is working. So let's go back to functions. Let's go back to our, let's see, where is it? Hexal put. Now we've already got solar panels in here, so let's run this one, run that once. And then what we'll do is, we'll X out of that. Let's add another product just so we can get back more than one. So I'm just going to update the ID, make it 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and let's change this to LED lights. All right, save that and go ahead and run that. All right, so now we'd expect to have 2 products in the table. So we're not even going to check it directly at Dynamo. Let's just go back to our get items, Hexal get items, and let's run this again and see if we get those 2 items back in the response. So go ahead and click on test. And let's look at our logs. And there we go. So our body now contains an array with those 2 product objects, solar panels and LED lights. Okay, so far we've got 3 lambdas. They're all working. They're all verified working. What is the last one we need to do? Update. So we need an update function. All right, let's do this in a little bit different order this time. Let's go to functions. Let's create our lambda first, and then we'll deal with the code. So I'm going to do, since we're here, might as well change things up. Hexal update item. All right. And you know the drill by now, so go ahead and select our basic execution role and create function. All right, and there's our boilerplate code. So let's hop back over to our IDE And again, I'm just gonna, let's see, maybe I'll copy the put function this time since it's closer to what I'm gonna need. All right. So copy that, and let's go ahead and create one final Lambda here. Hexal update item.js. And let's paste that code in there. All right, so now let's look at what we need to change to go from a put to an update. All right, again, we're going to start with the params object here. And we got our table name. Yep, we still need that. Item is going to change to key. Okay, and the only thing we need here again is the ID. So that's sort of similar to how delete looks up to this point. So it's going to identify the product by ID and then do any changing of other values in the object that we specify. And the way that we specify what needs to be changed, it's a little bit unique to the update function in terms of the syntax that we need to use here. So there's something called update expression. And what we're doing here is we're kind of creating a mapping of key values to from what field needs to be updated to the value that we want it to be updated with. So this is specific syntax for update. We want to do a set and then the field name. So product name equals to, and then we set an update expression which looks like this, :n. And I'm just using n because it kind of relates to name, but I could do p or anything else that I desire. So let's just do a comma, and then the next field is going to be expression attribute values. And here's where we actually say what we want it to be updated to. So this is an object. And so first we specify the expression that we set before, okay, and then :, and now the new value. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that was solar panels, I believe. Let's change it to water pumps, okay? And then finally, one more property that we need to add here. Return values. Now let's just say product updated, okay? All right, so let's go down to our try catch. And here we need to change put to update. Pretty straightforward. We're going to change our status code to 204. And let's say unable to update product. 403, that's still good. And everything else looks good to me. So let's go ahead and save and copy this. I'm going to select all, copy. Okay, just one quick look over to make sure that looks good. I believe that looks good. So let's go back to Lambda. And we're going to go ahead and delete our boilerplate code here and paste in our new code. So let's save that. Again, let's create a quick test event. Create. And let's go ahead and run our Lambda. Oops, no, so it's saying missing semicolon. I'll go ahead and fix that real quick. Anything else? Yeah. That's just a side effect of a lot of copy and pasting here. I should have fixed that at the very start. But anyway, save that, and let's go ahead and run our Lambda. Okay, and let's take a look at the logs. 403, so what did it not like here? Unable to update product, validation error detected. Product updated at return values, failed to satisfy constraint, member must satisfy enum value set. Okay, so I was wrong with that last property. It can't be any arbitrary value. It's got to be one of these values. So I'm going to change that to updated new. Okay, so just go back to your code here, scroll down a bit. See, I said product updated, but this has to be from a specific set of possible values. I didn't know that, so go ahead and change that, save it. I'm going to flip back over to Visual Code and make sure I change it here so I don't forget later. There we go. Let's go back to Lambda and let's rerun that. There, that looks good, and it's returning back our new value. So let's go ahead and check this one in Dynamo. So if we just go to items and refresh the page, and there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is now water pumps. So that's great. All of our 4 lambdas are working correctly. And we're done with this phase of the project. So we've got all of our Lambda set up. The next thing we're going to do is set up our REST API and API gateway. And then we'll come back to Lambda and we'll make just a few adjustments so that we're reading in the data from the request from API gateway rather than having them hard-coded in our Lambda code. All right, so we're gonna cut this video here since we're already over 35 minutes, I believe. And in the next video, in the part 2, we're going to go ahead and set up our REST API and API gateway. So thanks guys for watching. Thanks for sticking with it thus far, and I'll see you in the next video.